Good afternoon and welcome to this WIOA professional development session. My name is Kirsten Bayer with the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support at Illinois State University, and I will be your moderator and technical support for this session. Before we start with our presentation today, we have a couple of housekeeping things. Just a reminder, all participants on this meeting do have the capability to unmute yourselves, but we ask that you refrain from unmuting yourselves until the end of the session. If you have questions or comments as the session proceeds, please post those in the chat and we will address those at the end during our Q&A. And then you will also have the ability to and the opportunity to unmute yourselves and ask questions live during the live Q&A session at the end. Another reminder that this session is being recorded and it will be posted on Illinois WorkNet within about 48 hours, and we will put the website in the chat momentarily where you can find this posting within 48 hours. And then in an effort to be as accessible as possible, this session will be offering closed captioning, live closed captioning. It's not as accurate as we would 100% love it to be for accessibility reasons. So the recording will have complete and accurate transcription on it, but we do have the live closed captioning capability with us on Zoom for accessibility this afternoon. And then just another quick reminder, if you have a faulty internet connection or you start experiencing audio connectivity issues, please feel free to call in using the phone number on your original registration email that was sent to you via Zoom. And I will also put that phone number in the chat momentarily. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Tamika Chisholm, who's going to start with our presentation this afternoon.
All right, thanks, Kristen. Good afternoon, everyone. And first of all, I just want to say thank you for participating in our program 2021 monitoring briefing. This session is a kickoff to our annual monitoring cycle. Over the past weeks, OET has been providing professional development sessions for monitors in preparation for the new cycle, and also working to solidify our monitoring schedule for the PY21 monitoring cycle. So let's take a look at the agenda for this afternoon. So during today's session, we will talk about, I'll give a couple updates on, we have 2 new staff members that have joined the department since the PY20 monitoring cycle has started. We will also review some of the program year 2020 common findings. We'll also talk about some of the USDOL findings that were noted during the PY20 year as well, along with upcoming monitoring procedures, the schedule, areas of emphasis, and then also, as Kirsten talked about, we'll also have the opportunity for a Q&A session at the end of this presentation. So some of you may have already noticed just some during some of your PY20 monitoring events. We did have 2 new monitors. I know last year when the kickoff briefing went last year, there were a lot of new monitoring staff, but we did bring on 2 more earlier this year around February and early March. So we have a new programmatic monitor, Matt Hillen, who was with the department before and has returned. And then we also have a new fiscal monitor, Eric Bennett, who also brings a lot of accounting experience and was an accounting professor over at the Robert Morris University. So very excited to have our 2 new members. So during the PY20 program year, we did go through a few USDOL monitoring reviews as well. We went through the National Dislocated Worker Grant, the opioid grant, the dislocated worker, rapid response, the eligible training provider list, and the trade program. So this slide provides a high-level overview over the findings that were noted throughout those reviews. The first one, under the required funding information on outreach pamphlets, that was observed during our opioid grant review. So I did want to highlight that one. And additional communication from the department will be coming out in the near future, but also just wanted to guide everyone to uniform guidance to CFR 200.300. And that outlines the requirements that non-federal entities must go through when we're publishing any pamphlets on materials on our grant programs. We do need to make note of the funding source of those programs. So that was one area that was noted. And then also during our trade review, the standalone English as second language training plan, the state had a 36% completion rate. So we're working on exploring additional trainings that will be offered to those participants that do have English as second language, so that we are providing more and have a higher completion rate of those trainings. Also with the ETPL policy, one of the areas noted during that review is assuring that at the local area that we are providing a full consumer choice for the eligible training provider selection. In terms, that just means, I know that sometimes customers have an idea of the area or the training program that they want to work with. And also at the local area, we're able to identify, who those eligible training providers and programs are located. But DOL wants us to also provide them with the full state ETPL list as well. So they have full knowledge of all the training programs and all the training providers that are out there. And we're able to document that the consumer is making a full choice in the matter and was given all the information necessary to make those choices. During our Formula 2020 monitoring events, these were some of the common findings that were noted during that program year. They are very similar to PY19 and PY18. So this slide kind of outlines some of those common findings, and a lot of them point to data validation observations. So we will be working on some upcoming policies, I know, around case management that would be issued in the near future as well, to kind of support LWIAs with some of the findings that have been noted, to ensure that we're giving clear guidance and communication as well. But definitely going into the PY21 monitoring cycle, we will also have these as areas of emphasis, just to ensure that some of those findings during PY20 are being adjusted and corrected in PY21, and then that we're able to provide any technical assistance as needed during this monitoring cycle as well. The PY21 monitoring components will remain the same. We will have fiscal and programmatic. They will continue to be combined monitoring events. We will review governance. And then also, if there are any non-formula grants that the LWIA has been awarded, the monitoring team will review those at that time during your scheduled monitoring event during the PY21. If we have already, there are some non-formula grants that we may have reviewed in PY20. If that is the case, then we will not review them in PY21 unless there were some findings or areas of concerns that we want to kind of review again, just to see how things are going. But as the LWIAs are having new non-formula grant awards issued, we will continue to add those to your normal formula monitoring events. So for the PY21 monitoring procedures, just as in previous monitoring cycles, the department's monitoring context will continue to be grounded in the principles of continuous improvement. We will also proceed with the monitoring reviews and a multifaceted risk assessment. That includes the factors that are highlighted in this slide. So we still will review GATA pre-qualifications. We'll review previous monitoring reports. We're always wanting reports under IWDS. And then always ensuring that we touch base with various staff members throughout the department who are subject matter experts in areas like trade and eligibility. And then also the WIOA composition, just overview of the allocation, number of participants, subrecipients, and workforce partners. So the PY21 monitoring procedures will look very similar to PY20 as we go into the new cycle. So just as we conducted in PY20, also in PY21, we are planning that the majority of the monitoring events will be in a remote process, unless subject to change, just as we continue to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. Right now, our schedule, as it is set, is for remote monitoring to continue. So that means that the WIOA staff, we will still request that information is provided through the secure file transfer process. And then we still will have sample participant files uploaded to IWDS. And of course, just based on the WIOA and the event and the amount of documents that are requested for that event, if additional information or documents are needed and the review needs to be adjusted for additional dates, we will do that at that time as well. So the monitoring schedule. So we do have to monitor all local workforce areas. The non-formula grants, as mentioned, they do have to be monitored at least once during the life of the grant. So if we still have non-formula grants that we didn't review during PY20, we will circle back around and definitely add those to your events for the PY21 monitoring cycle. As noted before, additional time will be provided for expanded monitoring samples if additional samples are requested or additional information. We will touch base with the local area on the time frame that may be needed to complete that monitoring event. And again, the schedule is subject to change if we have any new developments on how we have to monitor, if we are able to move out of the remote setting to on-site field or any adjustments as guidance is given through the states, we would definitely communicate that at that time. But as noted before, I do project that the remote monitoring will presume in the majority of the events will be conducted in a remote monitoring format. So for the PY21 monitoring schedule, this is our outline for this year. Looking at the month of May, I know that looks a little scary, but in thinking of the monitoring schedule, we wanted to again start in October, but we wanted to finish earlier in the month of June. In the PY20 monitoring cycle, we ended towards the end of June, and I know that caused some inconvenience with year-end processes, gearing up for annual audits, things of that nature. So the 21 monitoring schedule will start the week of October 11, and we're going to end the week of June 13th. So hoping that is providing some flexibility, especially with year-end activities and transactions that I know we have to go through gearing up for June 30. But definitely as we go throughout the monitoring cycle and reaching out to each and every one of you when your monitoring event is coming up and preparing for announcement letters to be sent out, any feedback or anything you want to provide just on the timing, how it relates to your organization, please feel free to do that at that time. But this is the LWIAs that will be monitoring during the given months for the program year. And then also just noting in the month of May, the first two will be early May, and the second two will be before the holiday, Memorial Day. We want to be conscious of those holidays out there as well as we are trying to kind of schedule around those. So going to program year 2021, again, areas of emphasis, we will look at the US Department of Labor common findings. So the ones that were noted in that previous slide early on, those are items that we will monitor for during this PY21 monitoring cycle. Again, additional guidance to come regarding communication on pamphlets and outreach materials, case management, things of that nature to help support those findings as we move forward. And then also to provide support for those PY20 common findings as well. And then we'll continue to look at service delivery at the local area. You know, monitors may ask for updated information regarding the current status of workforce centers, as well on how services are being delivered. And non-formula grants. Non-formula grants is a big emphasis for us going to PY21. There are a lot of funding opportunities for entities to have additional grants that are outside of your WIOA formula funds. So as those awards do trickle down and are allocated to any of the local areas, we will continue to add those to your events and include that into your monitoring events. So that just reduces the amount of monitoring cycles that one entity would have to go through. So again, if we didn't reach those in PY20, we'll reach them in PY21 and get those grants reviewed and monitored as well. So this is my first annual kind of kickoff monitoring presentation. So I did want to provide a high level overview for everyone, but also as we are getting ready to kind of kick this off in a couple weeks, if anyone has any questions or feedback or comments, this is the time that we can kind of unmute ourselves and have those discussions and answer some of those questions. So yes, Kristen answered LaDonna's question. This will be recorded and will be posted in WorkNet, and we will send out the link to where this presentation will be posted. I will say that the monitoring team is very excited going into PY21. We have a full staff, we're fully staffed, our capacity, we've built it back up. So we're looking forward to working with everyone. We're looking forward to getting back into our monitoring events. We're utilizing our professional development sessions that we just went through to kind of get us prepared. We're using all of our experiences from PY20 in preparation for the program year 2021. So I do look forward to working with everyone. I look forward to getting back into the swing of things, and definitely looking forward to any feedback as you're going through your monitoring events. I do know that one of the majority of the comments was about communication and just ensuring that communication is kept up through all monitoring events on the programmatic side and the physical side. So just informing the WIOA of how things are going, if any additional documentation is needed. So that is something that is on our radar, and we will continue to ensure that that communication is ongoing. So Julie asked a question about the case notes that need to be entered within 10 days. We are looking at 10 business days, I believe. If I need to follow up on that clarification, I will, but it is 10 business days that those case notes should be entered. Any other questions? So Michelle asked about the anticipation of monitoring schedule notice and samples. We do try to send announcement letters out within 30 days of the scheduled monitoring event. And samples at that time that you receive your announcement letter, which is typically within 30 days. Sometimes we're not able to meet that deadline with our first two events that we kick off, but going throughout the schedule, that is our typical timeline. So when you receive that announcement letter within 30 days, there are two different dates that you should look at, and that's on the programmatic side and physical side. And typically all information will need to be submitted to us a week before the event. And then there are the participant files typically is requested to be submitted that Friday before, because typically we try to do the monitoring events on a Monday. So usually that Friday before, but within those monitoring letters, all the information is needed within typically a week before the monitoring event starts. And that allows the monitoring team to do their preliminary desk review, just in case before we schedule that entrance conference, that there's any additional information or documents that maybe didn't get scanned through that we can request at that time. So DCEO, regarding the 10 business days, the department will be sending out updated guidance and issuing a policy notice on the 10-day requirement. Right now, that is relisted in PY20 as a recommendation for the upcoming policy that is coming out. So you will receive updated communication on how that policy will be outlined. For non-formula grants, if your opioid grant or your non-formula grant was monitored in PY20, we will not monitor it again in PY21 unless there were significant findings that were observed during that monitoring event. But typically, if it was common findings or management recommendations, anything that wasn't too severe, we will only monitor that non-formula grant. Right now, under current guidance, at least one time during that award period. So typically for participant files, the question is around the time frame of receiving notice ahead of time for files that will need to be uploaded. Typically, we try to send that out within 3 to 4 weeks ahead of schedule for the monitoring, before the monitoring review starts. So you will receive your announcement letter, and then before your entrance conference, you should receive notice of the participant samples and files that would need it for the review. Yes, if your opioid grant was selected for review for a USDOL monitoring, the department will still monitoring, we still have to monitor that non-formula grant as well. So if USDOL does select your LWIA during one of our state monitoring reviews, the department will still do a state review as well. And typically, our review more than likely will come before DOL's review. They monitor our monitoring documents as well. Any other questions? And then also for PY21, we are looking at adding a FAQ link just for general monitoring questions. As we get monitoring questions, we can build a library so we can answer those, and those can be posted for everyone to see. So look out for that as well. But in the meantime, if you have any additional questions, please feel free to direct those to me, and I can get those answered for you. And if we don't have any additional questions, I'll give a couple minutes to see if a few more trickle through. Thanks, Courtney. That's a good question. Yes, for those that are new, we can definitely set up a separate session to do a walkthrough of what a mock formula monitoring event looks like, and walk through the process step by step, what to expect, what documents you will receive, what documents you'll receive from us, the responses that the department sends out. So we can definitely set something up for that for newer entities and newer personnel. Thank you for pointing that out. It seems like that will help help others out. So yes, we'll definitely touch base with me, and we can get something set up and offer it to others as needed as well. All right, well, thanks everyone for participating in this session. Again, thank you all for your support as I've come on board, and thank you for looping me into all of your questions, reaching out. Please continue to do that. Your feedback is definitely appreciated and needed as we continue to work through our cycles and update our processes and procedures. Again, now that we have, a full monitoring team. So looking forward to just kicking off this PY21 monitoring cycle and looking forward to continuing to work with everyone. And my door, my phone, email is always open. So we would get this monitoring session briefing posted. And then I'll send out more information to come when that FAQ link is uploaded as well.
All right, thank you so much, everyone. It looks like everyone's just saying thank you in the chat, Tamika.
Oh, thank you all.
All right, everyone, have a great rest of your Tuesday.